Alright, hello, this is Mr. Usher again, and today I'm going to talk to you about a summary of Chapter 5. It's titled Using a Spreadsheet. And we've been following a guide to Microsoft Office 2013. We've made it through Chapters 1 through 4. Chapter 1 was just a basic introduction to using Windows, using Office applications, opening, saving, printing, searching the web, citing sources, using the help feature, and just general things like using email properly. Then we moved into chapters 2, 3, and 4, and in chapters 2, 3, and 4 they progressively got a little bit more advanced into using a word processor and showing some of the features. So before, I think a lot of people were really comfortable with using all the tools on top of the ribbon, but some of them that you were uncomfortable with, I think you gained some experience and you probably learned quite a few different things that you will be able to kind of keep with you when creating and formatting documents in the future. So now that you are pretty much experts at using Microsoft Word, we're going to move on into a spreadsheet, and that is called Microsoft Excel. And I would say that a lot of students aren't as comfortable using Excel. Maybe you have had a couple classes that you've used Excel a few times before. Maybe you've created a chart or a graph, you've recorded some data or a list. So I'm going to give you a brief introduction of using Excel, but first let's talk a little bit about the assignments. So you're going to start off, you're going to work on the first practice called grades. It has 5 parts to it. And in between grades, there's going to be a small practice called examples and a portion of grades called depth memo. And what grades is kind of like taking the perspective as if either you're like a teacher or you're a teacher's aide, and you are inputting student test scores into a big spreadsheet. And one thing that's important after you insert test scores maybe into a spreadsheet would be labeling them by student ID and labeling them by the date that they were taken and identifying the test and then averaging them out. So there's a lot of information going to be entered within this spreadsheet that you are going to create from scratch. Along the way, the next one I mentioned was examples. Examples is just going to show you guys how you can type in information into a cell, which is the individual boxes, but when you type it in without using the equal sign, it is identified as different. It's identified either as text or when your number format is set to general, it'll solve it. So you guys will be kind of just understanding a little bit more how things work. The key to this one is going to obviously be like the equal sign in front. When you put the equal sign into a cell or into the formula bar, you are identifying to Excel that you would like it to solve an equation or a formula. Next is the depth memo. That one you're just taking a portion of the grades before it's finished and copying and pasting it to a Word document. This one's showing that you can take information that you would create in a spreadsheet, copy and paste it to Word or even PowerPoint, as we'll learn later on, and you'll be able to have a table now. Okay. The last one is Gadgets Invoice, and in Gadgets Invoice you will be creating a template for an invoice. An invoice is a document that businesses use, kind of like a receipt when people order order items. And I think yours is going to be some different types of gadgets like MP3 players or flashlights that you'll fill this out. You'll add in the quantity of how many that people would order, and it could be like setting something up for some small online business for when people would maybe send you an order through the email. A pattern that you're going to learn in this chapter is that in the last 3 chapters, chapters 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, learning Word, you're going to kind of summarize all of those same things, and we're going to learn those again, but this time in Excel. So you're going to learn how to do headers and footers. You're going to learn how to do templates and how to save things as HTML files. So you're going to start to see a lot of the similarities, which is pretty cool, and the way that this book is set up, that they do it in this just one chapter in chapter 5. And of course, finish up with the review questions. And then towards the end, you will have 3 exercises. The first one is a balance sheet. And for this balance sheet is a accounting document that companies use to value their company. It's set up into assets, liabilities, and owner's equity. So just pay really close attention, and I'm going to give you some tips for these exercises right now that'll be very, very important for you to complete them. And maybe I'll mention a few more tips or I'll write them in later. But the key to this one is you're going to put some totals for the assets. You're just going to add things up. You're going to put some totals for the liability. But then in the instructions in your textbook, it says stockholders' equity equals assets minus liabilities. So you're used to doing a simple formula for adding, and this is going to be one of the first times that you're going to do a subtraction formula. So just change the sign and it'll work just the same. The next one is personal finances, and personal finance is pretty cool. You are going to be kind of simulating a checking account statement to where you will be putting in every time that you would make a deposit or you would make a withdrawal from an account. A lot of you guys probably don't have bank accounts yet. You're not too worried about it, but very soon you will be in charge of your finances and your money, and it's important that we know how this works, how we put money into accounts and how money gets taken out. Excuse me. So understanding how this works is very important, and there is a challenging formula in this one that you can complete in one cell and drag the fill handle down, and it will copy to all of the other formulas and it will work. And you can just kind of double check your work to make sure that every time you enter in the cells a withdrawal or a deposit, that it either gets subtracted or added to the original balance. The last one is called the income statement, and that is another document that businesses use. And it kind of determines how much money that they are making at a current year oftentimes. And it's going to start up there at the top. It's going to have information about the expenses and the income that is being brought in. And another way that is that's called revenue. So revenue would be kind of like your sales, how many sales that your company is accumulating throughout a year. And then that is also going to be subtracted by your expenses, because there's this old kind of saying within business, you got to make sure that you don't spend more money than you're making, otherwise you won't have money in your business and you'll kind of go under. So that's what you're doing. You're going to total those up, and then down there at the bottom you're going to have to make sure to find your profit that you're going to subtract your sales minus your expenses and make sure that your business is making a profit. Alright, so to give you guys a brief introduction of Excel, this is kind of what your Excel window looks like. To make sure that you're comfortable, what you can do is you can click. I'm right here, I'm in A1. This is called the name box. This is called the formula bar. You can type in information here and it also enters here, or you can click here and act like you are typing information here. This name box, this is the name box up here, but this is called the active cell with this border line. We have letters up here at the top to represent the columns. We have numbers on the side to represent the rows. You can adjust the width by dragging it and making it larger. You can double click it to what is best fit. So that's important. Sometimes I like to right click. The textbook doesn't talk too much about like right clicking, and you can type in like a value right here and then it changes the width. Other things that you're going to see within this is in this active cell, that little square, you notice how the mouse pointer changes to a solid black cross, and now it's a larger white cross. You see how it kind of changes from when I hit that. Well, that little square in the corner is called the fill handle. So let me just kind of demonstrate a few ways on how this works. So I'm going to put a 1. If I drag the fill handle down, it's going to copy a bunch of 1s. If I put a 1 and a 2 right here, I'm going to drag the fill handle down and it's going to identify the pattern. If I put a 2 and a 4 and I drag the fill handle down, it will identify the pattern. Now we're copying it by 2s. If I put MON, it's going to recognize that I'm thinking about days of the week. If I start with today's date, I'm just going to put 6-18 watch what's going to happen. This has to do a little bit with the number formatting up here. It's in general. When I enter this in, a couple ways I can enter it in. I can hit the check mark, I can press enter, I can press tab. There are different ways that the textbook's going to have you do it. I'm just going to press enter this time. We're going to see that it went to a custom date format. If I was to drag this down, it's just going to copy the dates at certain points. So there's a lot to this. Now, over here, this number format, this is important too, because I was mentioning a little bit like in examples, the practice that you're going to be working on later on, you might want to do a simple equation. So if I go 2 plus 2 and I hit enter, nothing's going to happen. Okay, but if I go equals 2 plus 2, now it's going to say 4. Okay, and we're checking this number format. If I wanted to switch this cell from general to text, watch what's going to happen now. I go equals 2 plus 2. It's going to identify the equal sign as text, and it's going to remain the same. So these are just some little intricacies that we're going to learn about how things work. And there's a lot to this within that you're going to learn in the next couple chapters. I really kind of get excited when students get to learn about spreadsheets because it's very important. You're going to learn that you can insert pictures and illustrations, and this chart section is going to be really big for you guys. So this is a very, very important tool to be able to use. Excel is very, very important. So in chapter 5, you got a week to get it done. In chapter 6, you got a week to get it done. And then we're going to go back to chapter 7. Chapter 7 is a little bit easier, so you're going to get maybe about 4 or 5 days to complete chapter 7, kind of like a half of a week for that chapter. But good luck with everything, and if you have any questions, please let me know. And this will conclude the summary for chapter 5.